What is going on YouTube? This is Acid Roots. So I'm going to review the Greatest Hits album by Tupac Shakur. Basically, this project is called Greatest Hits and it came out in the fall of 1998. So this is a double album here and I wanted to review some more of these double albums. So we're going to get to this particular one. This is pretty much one of the highest selling rap albums of all time. Even today, it continues to be such a highlight. It was definitely a highlighted hit out of the 90s. Just a good pitch to kind of, this was just such a good pitch to capitalize on Tupac's popularity throughout the mid-late 90s as far as that pitch kind of particularly happened. This is like the next noteworthy project to kind of mess with after like Machiavelli and All Eyes on Me. And this is like the next noteworthy Tupac project to mess with after Machiavelli album and All Eyes on Me from 1996. This would be a pretty hit album. This has some new songs on here, or at least some unreleased songs as far as that pitch kind of particularly kind of happened. And it has a good chunk of Tupac singles. The good news about it is just the fact that it is true. The good news about it is true and easily seen that Tupac has enough greatest hits to fill out a double album. I would definitely say he does not have much of a problem with filling out a double album. I would definitely have to suppose this is kind of the concept. There are some ones that are not on here. There are some picks that are kind of clumsily not on this particular project. It's not enough to detract from the score. I will go ahead and say that this album's going to get a 10 out of 10, but it's just kind of the concept that it's basically a pretty pitch as far as that aspect kind of having tons of bona fide hits on here and even a couple new songs, especially in the singles, I would have to say. So it's a pretty good concept to kind of get some of this. The thing about it in particular is just the fact that if you are looking for more All Eyes on Me Tupac, it doesn't really have like more 1996 type stuff just within the pitch of like singles. For the most part, these are just unreleased songs that he was working on that just were kind of, I don't want to say half baked, but just kind of the concept that were just kind of remixed and just kind of not necessarily songs like they weren't necessarily songs that he had on the pipeline that were getting ready to come out as much as they were just undercooked kind of songs. Not necessarily undercooked in terms of quality, but just the pitch of kind of having some of these just within the atmosphere, just kind of wanting like some Tupac from like the All Eyes on Me and Machiavelli days. I definitely I suppose with these songs, I mean, at least two out of the four songs that are new on here that you hear are particularly good, but you also get some extra ones like California Love, the original version that was released to radio as a single, is on here, so it's different from the original one that's on All Eyes on Me. The diss song to Biggie is on this particular album. The Hit 'Em Up song, that's a song that you can't really find anywhere else. I would probably purchase this project just for that song alone in some cases, I'd have to suppose. But there are some other ones. One of Tupac's biggest hits in terms of commercial, one of Tupac's largest songs in terms of commercial and makeshift market, which would be Changes, is on here. So that's a pretty good concept to kind of get that one. It's just some good stuff to kind of particularly have within this market. Just a lot of good stuff. Would definitely have to say, obviously, it's going to get a 10 out of 10, but I just look after the concept. Yeah, I mean, for the most part, it would almost feel like this album needed to be packed to a little bit more girth. I feel like 25 songs is a little bit light. I feel like they probably could have gone to 30, even probably had like 15 songs on each disc or something like that. I would have definitely supposed. Just a good concept to kind of get. Like, I noticed that Big Psych and the Outlaws aren't really on here. Like, I noticed that Big Psych and the Outlaws aren't really on here that much, which is kind of a disappointment considering how much that he rode with them in 1996 as far as that particular fair kind of went in 1995, I suppose. But it's just kind of, it's a widespread kind of appeal. It's just showing the true, this album is just showing like the true stretch of Tupac's full-blown run on like the charts between 1991 and 1996, I'd have to suppose. It's a good concept, we're going to get that, but I mean, just nitpicking here and there could still be some complaints, but for the most part, it covers like the vast majority. I'd probably say 93, 95% of the hits that Tupac kind of had, maybe 90%, somewhere in that range. It's in the 90% as far as like the sheer hits that he kind of had. If anything, it just would have needed more songs packed onto these double disc albums. So it's just kind of thing. But yeah, there were two singles off this album. The first single is Changes, so we'll go ahead and talk about this one. Changes is kind of a stellar malaise midday makeshift Tupac at like a superb kind of commercial appeal. I would definitely have to suppose this song is marketed well and it keeps the edge about Tupac despite being pretty. And this song keeps the edge despite being marketed more towards commercial markets, I'd have to suppose. So this is definitely one that would have had Tupac in a pretty boisterous type of appeal. And the fact that Tupac recorded this song in 1992 and the fact that he recorded it this early, I definitely think this would have been a pretty widespread one. If this had been on All Eyes on Me, this would have been one of his biggest highlights. I definitely think by the time if this would have came out in like 97, 98, something like that, this definitely would have had a lot of appeal because this is just one that you can hear in like shopping malls and shopping centers, places like that, clothing stores. It's Tupac. I mean, you can think of like California Love and How Do You Want It, some of those type songs, but those are more of like dance club and nightclub type songs. But this is one where you can just hear in like a more blue collar makeshift kind of sense, sort of stuff that would just kind of be more, that was kind of marketed out and starting to be like Dr. Dre wasn't really doing songs like this back in the day apart from like the No Diggity song and things like that. So this is definitely a pretty good pitch because this is almost like a pop rap kind of song. This is the sort of pitch that Tupac was on before Nelly and folks like that were kind of doing this. So this is just a pretty good appeal to kind of get this. This definitely probably could have been one of Tupac's biggest songs had he lived to have been able to see it come out, I'd have to say. That's a real memorable beat on top of that, I'd have to suppose. And the second single is Unconditional Love, and this was just kind of like in promotional single type market, more in like the R&B and hip hop type charts, but it's still a pretty good one. This is kind of a beleaguered kind of upbeat. This is just kind of a beleaguered kind of upbeat drizzled tune, I'd have to suppose. Just like for rainy days, just with the sunshine kind of being out, something in that pitch, kind of similar to Keep Your Head Up and Dear Mama, some of those type tunes. And it's just kind of another makeshift song. So the thing about these particular singles off this greatest hits album is they're just very makeshift, I'd have to suppose. Both of these are not dance club and kind of night out type songs, just Tupac on his thug life type stuff as far as that kind of happens. It's just kind of interesting to get Tupac in this kind of commercial marketing because I think the widespread appeal of this is just the idea that he was going to get a lot more chart appeal and just more pop rap type affairs. And I like both of these, although I kind of feel like Unconditional Love to me is more of like an almost song just because I question how many times I'd listen to it. It's not often, it's not every day that I listen to Keep Your Head Up or So Many Tears or Dear Mama or some of those type pitches, but I do listen to songs like Ambitions as a Rider and Thug Passion and Hail Mary and some of those type songs every day. So it's just kind of the pitch about that, but this is just kind of an almost song for me. It's a pretty decent single here. I'm not going to knock the score for not, wholesomely enjoying this one full blown, but I would have to say it's a solid enough song. It's just kind of the more makeshift kind of appeal of it that just makes me question how often I'd listen to it. So that's kind of the concept. But both these are pretty high. Both of these are pretty good singles just within the pitch, trying to get Tupac to more widespread markets, trying to get him in more of like bookstore type places and just overall more widespread appeal places like Target, some of those type places. So that's just basically the concept about it. So to talk about the songs I recommend on this particular album. So out of 25 songs on here, I wound up recommending. So out of 25 songs on this particular album, I wound up recommending to you 21. So the only 4 songs, or the only 3 songs, really 21 and a half. So out of 25 songs in this particular album, I wound up recommending to you 21 and a half. So the only real 3 songs I don't recommend would just be God Bless the Dead, Dear Mama, and then one other song. God Bless the Dead, Dear Mama, and Troublesome 96. So talk about those songs real quick. Basically, I really didn't like the beat on God Bless the Dead. I liked the lyrics of this particular song, had a good pitch about it, but it just didn't quite pull it off as much. This just kind of felt like a half-baked. God Bless the Dead just kind of felt half-baked in terms of song quality as far as that pitch kind of happened. And then Dear Mama just didn't really listen. And then Dear Mama is just not a song I too oftenly listen to. It's just kind of, I mean, it's not a bad song. It's just not a song I too oftenly listen to. I'd have to suppose it's not one that I would frequent that much. And then Troublesome 96. I somewhat like the song, really like the kind of engaging and thrilling production on this particular one. It was a pretty upbeat type one, just in kind of a more, this was a more upbeat type song, just kind of in a more thuggish type sense, but it just didn't really have, like, I don't know, there was just something about it. It just didn't roll off the tongue that well. This Troublesome 96 just kind of felt awkward and just cumbersome from normal Tupac type fare. It just was kind of one that felt like a half-baked idea and just didn't really have the pitch behind it. Kind of felt like him kind of being more back on like his Strictly for My Niggas vibes. Just, it didn't have like this sheer snap and kind of affability of songs like From All Eyes on Me and some of those type ones and Me Against the World. This felt a little bit more half-baked and not quite as snappy as far as that pitch can happen. I mean, the production, the lyrics on it are pretty excellent. It's just kind of the concept of the song composition, just the overall pitch as to what the song was trying to be was just very loose and just not very arranged as far as something that just had like an overall kind of just execution. Well, it just felt like a kind of freestyle of a song and just kind of an in-between type song more so than an actual song that was official or something. This is kind of the concept about it. But so talk about some of these songs I do recommend on here. Basically, I mean, it carries like a good severe amount of highlights. So I'm going to list some songs I probably think that should have been on this album as far as that pitch kind of happens. I feel like Ambitions as a Rider should have been on here. That's definitely one of Tupac's biggest songs. That definitely should have been on this particular project. Had no business not being on here. Pour Out a Little Liquor probably should have been on this album also. That's from the Thug Life Volume 1 album. There's not enough Thug Life Volume 1 on here. That's a definite pretty excellent album by Tupac and Thug Life. I'd have to say definitely needed more of them. I Don't Give a Fuck, which was one of Tupac's I Don't Give a Fuck, which was one of Tupac's debut singles off of his Tupacalypse Now album, definitely should have been on here. That just had a lot of boisterous energy, and that definitely probably needed to be on here. There's not a bunch of songs from Tupacalypse Now on here. I definitely feel like there probably should have been a couple more. I mean, that's not like the hugest, most classic album, but I do feel like I Don't Give a Fuck was a pretty good highlight that definitely needed to be on here. If I Die Tonight is another highlight from Me Against the World. I mean, Me Against the World is kind of modestly represented on here, but it's not full blown. I feel like there were some other hits on here, and I definitely feel like the Thug Life kind of energy of If I Die. I definitely feel like the Thug Life energy of If I Die Tonight definitely need to be on this particular project. That would have been a real nice one. Then All Eyes on Me, the title track from All Eyes Eyes on Me is not on here. Tupac and Big Sight completely annihilate this particular song. And it's just a pretty good nightclub pitch that definitely needed more of on this particular project. There's not a ton of nightclub songs on here. I mean, they're kind of here and there. There's some good ones, definitely some boisterous ones, but this is trying to be like a more balanced and just overall widespread type album to really have like a mass market type of appeal. And All Eyes on Me definitely probably should have been on here. That was just one of the best songs off of All Eyes on Me. It definitely feel like that was a highlight and probably belonged on here if there had been a few more songs that I have to suppose, or even take off like the Me Against the World title track from this particular album. There's just some ones, but I feel like for the most part they nailed 90%, 92% or so of like the songs that they needed to on this particular greatest hits. Probably just needed a few more songs and things like that, I'd have to say. But that's the pitch behind it. So yeah. All the hits are on here. One in particular I'm going to talk about is Hit 'Em Up. This is definitely a pretty highlighted one. This is like a furious kind of summer energy diss to Hit 'Em Up is definitely a pretty furious summer energy diss to Biggie, I would have to say. This is like a classic ride out tune, definitely. And this is a 90s highlight, I would have to say. And it's just memorable and affable. This song is just memorable and affable, I would have to say. This is probably one of the most highlighted songs out of rap music out of the 90s, I definitely have to say. It's just a pitched 90s diss song, I would have to suppose. It's a real good highlighted one. The total diss to Notorious B.I.G. The Outlaws was on this song. The Outlaws were on this song also, and they do a pretty good job also dissing Biggie and them as far as that pitch kind of happened. Dissing Biggie and Junior Mafia, I'd have to suppose. So it's just a good pitch to overall kind of get. It's definitely a pretty furious song. This is just some great summer energy. This is just a great song to ride out all summer, just between May and September as far as that pitch kind of happens. This is just ferocious kind of energy, I would have to suppose. It's a real good highlighted pitch. Definitely belonged in All Eyes on Me. I think there should have been a revamped edition, but you might as well just pick up this album just to get this song. So this is definitely a pretty highlight one between getting Hit 'Em Up, Changes, some of those type ones, even Unconditional Love in certain senses, just being able to say that some of these, and even California Love, the single version that was not anywhere else at the time, was just a good pitch to kind of get that. So it's a good concept. So yeah, there's just some ones on here. I kind of want to talk about Trapped again because I don't know if I talked about that one when I reviewed Tupac's. I don't know if I talked about highlighting that one when I reviewed Tupacalypse Now last year, but I do like that song more now. This is definitely like Trapped is definitely like a peppy kind of retro saloon like music, I would have to say. It's just an upbeat kind of city hopping. The song is definitely some upbeat city hopping, I would definitely have to suppose. And it's just a breezy kind of sunny day. This song is definitely like a breezy kind of sunny day sip of brew type song, I would definitely have to suppose. And it's just kind of a song for being in the wind. So this is a pretty good one. This is just very retro. This reminds me of like 80s kind of stuff from like rap music as far as that pitch kind of happens. Something from Digital Underground or something from Public Enemy, some of those type folks as far as those sorts of things kind of happen. I just would have to suppose it's a good concept to kind of get some of that kind of West Coast kind of boom bap type stuff just within the pitch of like the early kind of turntable more years of things as far as that pitch kind of happens. So it's just a good highlight kind of retro one. One of the most retro Tupac songs I would say off this album and just in general, but still pretty good highlighted one. I think this was actually his debut single, so it's definitely a good hit to kind of start things off with. So yeah, there's just a number of hits on here. You'll get Hail Mary. You get some highlights off the Machiavelli album like Hail Mary and Toss It Up and To Live and Die in LA. And you get a bunch of highlights from All Eyes on Me like All About You, Hearts. A bunch of highlights off of All Eyes on Me like All About You, Hearts of Man, California Love, Picture Me Rollin', Life Goes On, How Do You Want It. Just a good highlighted amount of these. Two of America's Most Wanted. There's just some great ones to kind of have on here. Two of America's Most Wanted is a pretty good nightclub song with Snoop Dogg. That's a definite highlight. That's a definite highlight to kind of get. Life Goes On is just an ode to. Life Goes On is an introspective type tune for dead homies as far as that pitch kind of happens. Definitely a good highlighted one. This is a good ruminating type song for Tupac. Just a lot of good summer energy. Just kind of summer malaise as far as that pitch kind of happens. I Ain't Mad at You. That's another one from All Eyes on Me. That's a pretty good pitch. Definitely enjoyed that one. This is kind of with Falling Out. I Ain't Mad at You is a pretty good summer highlight for fallouts with homies as far as that pitch kind of particularly kind of happens. Picture Me Rolling's kind of like a middle finger to haters and stuff like that. Definitely like the pitch of that particular one. How Long Will They Mourn Me is a pretty good drunken ode to just kind of wondering about death and stuff like that, just the after effect. How Long Will They Mourn Me is kind of a malaise one, just talking about death and the after effects of just kind of being like a drunken song, just kind of graveyard hopping, that type of stuff as far as that pitch kind of happens. Just the concept of talking about dead homies and those sorts of pitches as far as that kind of goes. There's some nightclub songs. I do like these nightclub songs kind of on here. Temptations is another one. This is off of like Me Against the World. This is a pretty good highlight. This is definitely a pretty hooky song. This is just Tupac kind of on some riveting type energy where he's still kind of in like his thinker's mindset as far as that pitch kind of happens, but it's just also him stepping out a bit. Tupac was still kind of more, a little bit more alert and just kind of more steadfast on Me Against the World. He wasn't quite as loose and quite as riveting on, as he was on All Eyes on Me, but this is a good one where he kind of cuts loose a little bit and it's just a good highlight. There definitely need to be more songs like this on. Me Against the World, I have to suppose. Keep Your Head Up's on here. Obviously, that's a good highlight. It's a vintage kind of introspective and kind of more homely, makeshift kind of Tupac type song, I'd have to say. There's some more songs like that, like Brenda's Got a Baby. That's another good one for that pitch. So some of those type ones are just some real good highlights to kind of have just within those senses. Definitely some Thug Life kind of tunes like All About You, and some Thug Life kind of tunes like All About You and California Love, and like To Live and Die in LA, and some of those type ones. I really like the kind of steadfast, kind of just mid-pace kind of bop of Hearts of Men. That's definitely pretty underappreciated Tupac songs. Hearts of Men is definitely a pretty underappreciated Tupac song, so I'm glad that that one's on there. It's definitely a good pitch to kind of get some of those. That's just kind of the concept. So that's just kind of the concept about this particular album. There's just tons of these, plenty of hits on here. All Eyes on Me is on here a whole bunch. Machiavelli has some good hits. Me Against the World has some good hits. Just some ones like that. Just a good assortment of just overall highlights that just have it. I mean, this basically has the hit singles. If it was a hit single by Tupac off of one of his albums, chances are it's on here, unless it's with the bigger album like All Eyes on Me, which there's just not enough room for all these hit songs on here. But I listed some of the extra songs I felt like should have probably been on here, so just some ones like that. But it's kind of the pitch. This album gets a 10 out of 10. The social score gets a 10 out of 10 also, because Tupac is ubiquitous in rap music and pretty much getting close to just music in general. He's definitely a staple and the highlight. This is an album that went diamond, so it's a pretty good pitch to kind of get that from a greatest hits. This is definitely one, if you're just looking to skim through Tupac a little bit, this is a good concept of a starting point just to kind of have, just for folks that are not average kind of fans of Tupac, for folks that are not much more than casual fans of Tupac, which Tupac is so talented that even when you're a casual fan, you eventually wind up liking him a lot more. So this is kind of the pitch about it. There's plenty of affable songs on here, some nightclub songs, some dance songs, some songs for ladies, some makeshift songs, some upbeat songs, just a whole bunch of pitches just within that aspect is trying to get some of these things. Tupac has personality for days and weeks, so I'd have to suppose it's a good pitch to kind of get that. So some good stuff. So in terms of the future, that's kind of difficult because Tupac is deceased, but there are a few more double albums by Tupac I'm eventually gonna get to, but this is a pretty good highlight album. This is definitely a classic greatest hits album, I'd have to say, and I do highly recommend it just for like even just simple songs like Hit 'Em Up and Changes and some of those type ones. Just highly recommend it.